Hey, Don, the auction fester. It's our last show today. It's right about 7 o'clock. I will give it a little time for some folks to get in here. For tomorrow, I do have a haul video coming out first thing in the morning, and it's going to be some of the hauls I've had in the last couple days. I've got a ton of sheet music and some things along that line, but we will wait. We can probably touch a few things for those since as we are recording this. I will have this video available for anybody interested, but we will have it up as well too, and we will go from there. Some of the questions I had were protecting yourself from bad eBay customers and people just not being very scrupulous and honest. There's no real 100% surefire way to save yourself from uh, people doing stuff like that. Um, in the past, you could hang on here. Let's okay. In the past, I've had some issues here with people not returning all the items. I just had something returned, the first item on the free returns, and hang on here. Why can't I see the chat? And we will just wait till we get some more folks in here. But if anybody has questions, as I was saying, I did have a return. The person returned an item. It was a piece of jewelry. It was 14 karat gold with a certificate of authenticity. And the person actually just sent the jewelry back and kept the certificate. They had it for like a week or so, said that just wasn't what they wanted. No big deal, but without that certificate, I can't do much. That's about the worst case that I've had in seeing this kind of stuff. In the past, I've had people that sent stuff back without the authorization and things along that line. So, really, the worst thing you can have is somebody ripping you off by not sending the items back. And that's literally what I had to deal with. So, but with this one here, I filed a report with eBay stating the gentleman returned it but did not return the whole thing. I have not given him his refund back just because obviously I don't have the rest of it back. But he said he is going to send it, and we will see what happens from there. Um, again, as I said, I will have a haul video first thing in the morning. We will go back to the same format. Lesson learned. People weren't too happy with the last video format that I did, so no big deal. I like to try different things. I was just playing around with the graphics program. I'm a big graphics buff, so for me, it was kind of a fun thing to do, and I liked showcasing the artwork too. So that was all good as well too. Um, and for some reason, if anybody can hear this, if you could please let me know, because for some reason, the chat just doesn't seem to be showing who's actually in here, but I see people on. So I don't know if we're having some technical issue or not. Okay, just making sure because for some reason it's not showing what it usually does on the side over here. I don't know if anybody else has done live, but usually you have like a little ticker over here, and that is not on. If anybody has any questions, I'm glad you can hear me. We are going to be rolling with the full-fledged live with HD camera coming up. Um, that'll be in next week. So I was trying to get it for this week, but we've had too many picks this week, and I just haven't had a chance to do a couple test runs of it. We have tested in the past, but it just wasn't correct. So Liz for a day, welcome. Seeker, welcome. EJ, JI, Green Thrifty Life. This is actually just my second time live. For checking out postcards. Yeah, I actually I go online and I do research a lot on the Victorian section. I literally have probably a third of all Victorian trade cards on the entire eBay system are mine. And I had emailed somebody who had an incorrect title on one of the listings, and it happened to be a subscriber here. So don't want to call anybody out, but I do occasionally go through the category. It's my main category. So for me, I try to I don't say police, but I try to give helpful information if somebody's got something titled wrong. It helps protect the category that is one of my big money makers. So that's just something that I do. Um, don't have as many as we had last week. Hopefully, we got some questions for us today. I did have a few written down, but I do not see the person who asked them specifically on yet, so we will give that one a few more moments. Any best time of day or two? Ending listings, I've always stuck to Sunday. If you're going to do like a auction, try and always start it on Sunday and ending on Sunday, or I think Tuesday with a 10-day auction or somewhere along that line. But I always ended on Sunday in the afternoon. I don't know if that's like a key thing or not, but for us, it's always done very well. More people are home after church, say like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're ending through the week. There's not as many people on, and they might be working, especially if they're ending before 5, like on Monday through Friday. Some items don't matter. Like in the collectibles, it's not as important because people that buy these sometimes are dealers and they're even doing it from their location. I probably maybe 20% of my business goes to another dealer, and I don't really care if they make money on it or not. As long as I'm making my figures, I don't really care if somebody else, makes a further profit down the line from me. Um, Okay, Green Thrifty Life. Yeah, I remember you had 2 books of Chinese postcards. I do talk to people on my Facebook group, and I'm always happy to ID stuff and give you some price estimates. Did you end up selling those, Green Thrifty Life? High Sublime 90, Treasure Experts, label or postcard, but it's not listed and sold or current. How do you know what price to set? Would hate to sell it too low. When in doubt, I usually put higher on it, price it by like similar items. In the video I showed yesterday, I've already sold one of those labels. It was the 1876 corn label, and I took 125 on that, 125 bucks. Um, there's no price in comparison on that one. You can look to your blue in the face on, Worth Point or any of the sites out there. There's no price. I've sold a lot of vintage labels, so for me, I kind of price them in the same range, like say 75 to 125. It depends on the kind of label you have. Cigar label, priceguide.com. If it's a cigar label, I usually say, 20, 30% of whatever it is on there started at that. I put up cigar labels the other day and I put some horrendous price on them. I don't really care if I sell them right away. Right now, I'm just kind of drumming up people trying to see them. These are oddball items when you're looking at like labels and things that sell into the hundreds of dollars, and you really need to get some people looking at it and have it up there for a little while to get the best money on it. It'll start to get a talk in people in the sites that collect like that specific item, like cigar labels. There's 2 or 3 big network sites, and they'll say, "Hey, did you see this label?" I'm a member on these sites too. I don't announce who I am or anything, but I just kind of feel it and see what's going on with that. And that's usually what I do for labels like that. But again, for pricing labels, I try to price them at what I've seen similar labels. If it's a canned label, like off a can from the 1880s through 1920s, any similar can label would be about the same price range, especially if it's from the same company. Thurber is like one of the biggest can label makers that I see. Probably 50, 60% of every label that I run into is a Thurber label, and those are real easy to price. They're usually in the same ballpark. 30 to say 125 is about the price range, depending on how pretty they are. Like in the video I had, the labels, the large ones, those are just the face plates basically of the labels. They would have wrapped around a whole can, so it's only half the label. The more the label you have, the more it's worth. So that's how those kind of work. Um, Victorian trade cards, you will always make money on them. It may take a little while. Yeah, Victorian trade cards do very well. Just be careful to list them to the best of your ability. Some can go for a ton of money. Um, in doubt, if you get any really oddball ones, you're welcome to join the Facebook group, and I will be happy to give you some hints and insiders on them. The person who wrote the price guide on Victorian trade cards, you can get it off of Amazon as well. He actually buys from us. I've conversed with the gentleman. He's got the price guide, and there's actually a newsletter, or was a newsletter that actually was published, I think, on a monthly basis, and he was one of the key writers for that as well too. But there is some information, at least, to ID them. Price wise, though, any of the price guides, and I've talked about this before, any of the price guides, whether it's postcards, trade cards, or not, the values are all over the place, and you can't really use a price guide for judging prices, in my opinion. And I do them all the time. So literally, I do have like 30% plus of the entire eBay market on trade cards is ours, literally. And I can honestly say that's probably a very accurate number. There's like 50,000 up, single cards. I'm not talking about the lots and stuff. But anyway, let's see what else we got here. Mark's play sets, I always do very, very well on that. I showed a Mark's figures and another one, the Tom Corbett set, Space Cadet set. I sold those like 50 bucks out of those. And these are just little tiny figures about, 54 millimeters or somewhere in that range. Mark's figures always sell. So if you get those at an estate auction, good deal. Best estate auctions for buying stuff like that are the ones that do not go live. You want them just local, in-house bidding only. There's getting to be fewer and fewer of those these days, but there are still some around here, especially. So those are the ones I always hit. They will sell at some point. They have a bunch of watchers. Yeah, if you have trade cards up. Oh, you're talking about okay, I'm sorry, Green Thrifty Life. Watcher wise, if you got, 4 or 5 of them there and it hasn't sold, just give it some time. You're probably, depending on your price on it, you may have to lower it a little bit or just let it ride out if you're not in a hurry. On anything like that, I don't care if it sits there for months. For a whole year, it's 60 cents at 5 cents. And if you've got, under your 10,000 freebies for your anchor store, they're only 4 cents basically. Plus you get the boxes. So if you got less than 10,000 listings and you're paying for an anchor store, just write out the prices on all those items. Let's see here. Matchbook covers. Seeker, if you're going to do matchbooks, do the entire matchbook. What you want are feature matches. A feature match is when you open up the booklet, the actual matches that you would light will have a picture on them. Some of them have like go-go dancers and, they're shaped like teeth or they're bombs or something like that. Feature matches. If you're going to sell matchbooks, try to always get the full matches, the whole thing, unopened, with all the matches intact. Those will always, always sell the best. If you're just going to sell covers, yeah, 8 to 12 bucks. That's probably about average for a decent one, like a soda one, like a tire one, Goodyear one, sell in that range. Pepsi, Coke, some of the oddball ones like Frosty. I sold some Frosties for like 15, 20. On matchbooks, I don't try to buy a ton of those unless, as I said, if they're complete. Just because it's a hit or miss on matchbooks. There's on eBay, you can probably buy tons of lots of them right this minute, just for practically nothing. So they're not worth a ton of money, but you can get some good hits on some of the better ones. If they've got like 40s pinups on them, those always sell. I always sell the pinup ones. Usually I'll put them in a lot just to get them out the door. Match books or boxes sell very well, especially the fancy earlier ones. I've sold some like blue tips and things like that off the cardboard boxes for, like 20, 30 bucks. The older, the better. I think Vista or Vestel, I think is the one with the swan on it. I've sold a bunch of those empty boxes for like 10, 15 bucks a piece. Just the big full size boxes, with the striker on the side. Those do sell too. The Facebook group is the Auction Professor as well. A newsletter with the store, it kind of sends out a broadcast when you have subscribers. So as long as you set it up, it's something you have to do. You can't just do nothing with it. You have to actually go in there and I think alter and set stuff up. I've set that up a while ago. I can probably go in and do a video if you guys are interested in seeing that. When I do a sale, I always do a sale with a note out to everybody. I think I got like 179 subscribers to our store, something along that lines. I haven't sent one out in a little while just because we've had a lot of people coming and going. Our sales have been pretty darn high this past couple months. So, and again, as I said, we're pushing with a bunch of sales. So I don't think we've even sent one out other than when we ran some sales. They can help because they tell you when you're listing new items. So if you list a bunch of items, you might want to send one of those out. But again, I'll throw a video together on that. I went through it before. I haven't even looked at it in any recent time. But it has been helpful in the past, especially if you're running a sale because no one knows you have a sale going on. And eBay's been very good about that. They actually push. So if somebody's watching an item now and you put it on sale, eBay sends a pusher out that says, one of the items on your watch list is now on sale. And that's usually all I worry about when I'm doing that, the markdowns. Because my markdowns are almost always, if I mark something down, it's on my watch list. So there'll be a bunch of people on this watch. I marked some of my clothing down, and this morning we sold a leather jacket for like 125. So it helps when you do the markdown. Stuff always sells. We sold a shirt yesterday. I'm literally, we're trying to blow out the clothing. I might even put them down to like 70% off just for space wise, at least the stuff that's been up for more than say 2 or 3 months. Let's see here, what else do we have? Oh, yeah. Glad to have 19 watching. What other kinds of inferium do very well? Liz for a day. Um, Paper wise in general, anything circus related. I've got a haul sitting up here too. Maybe I'll pull it out for tomorrow too. But sheet music. Sheet music's big. I picked up maybe 70 real good sheet musics today. I'm gonna actually show those in the hall tomorrow morning. Well, it'll probably be tomorrow afternoon because I am going to another hall first thing in the morning. But sheet music is killer. Magazines are, great residual income. You'll list them, forget about them, and they'll sell, one or two a week, usually for each group I put up. Um, Pamphlets, brochures, flyers, broadsides, any type of decent poster. I've shown some posters in other videos, rock posters. And if you want to know where to get some of that kind of stuff at rock posters, go to the record stores or even the CD shops and stuff, the smaller ones, not the national chains. Around here, we've got two or three local shops that have two or three facilities. Like there's an Allied Records around here. I don't know, maybe that even isn't. Maybe that's even a national chain. I'm not really sure, but sometimes you can get posters from them in big bulk quantity. The local record stores are great, especially when they're having a clearance sale. And then the auctions too. So poster wise, always sell, especially the rock posters. Vintage rock posters are the best. Like a Jimi Hendrix or something like that. 70s psychedelic posters. I think I've showed some in some videos. I picked up some Marvel ones just like maybe a week or so ago. They're like Hulk and Spider-Man and Captain America. And they're all like psychedelic blacklight posters. I think 67 through 73 are the dates on them. But stuff like that, any of those posters, um, Christmas cards, vintage Christmas cards. And when you get them in like big bulks and stuff, you can even sell the faces of them and the scrapbook section. Type in Christmas cards, scrapbook, even in the new ones, and you're going to see a ton of them. There's two or three sellers, and if you look, they'll have maybe 10,000 Christmas cards up, and it's just the faces of them, and they only sell them for like scrapbookers, and they get like 34, 50 to say $45 a piece for the faces of these, and we've sold them like that too. I had in fact, I still have some up if you go to my store. Santa Claus climbing out of a rocket from like 1957, 58. I got $45 a piece for them. We bought a box of those for $1.99 at Savers before they closed over here. And I sold maybe like 6 or 7 of these things for $45 a piece. And I didn't think much of Christmas cards because they were new in 50s, 60s. But any of that stuff sells to the scrapbookers and even the stampers and things like that. Anything scrapbook these days seems to sell. New stuff even. When I see a scrapbook garage sale locally, I'll usually go to it, buy up all their stampers and things like that, especially if it's somebody who got into it and wasn't sure they liked it. And then they're just dumping off all this high-end stuff at a garage sale for, a dollar or two for these little stampers that make the fancy shapes in the paper and all. But let's see if I'm missing anybody here. Yeah, sheet music. I'm going to do sheet music tomorrow. As I said, I've got a ton of it in here. Michelle Cox Trout. Yeah, the Hummel, that's a decent, probably a bookmark. Michelle was the one who I ran into on eBay. And again, as I said, I do go through the areas that I'm key in. If I'm 30% of Victorian trade cards, I do police the category just so it doesn't muddy the waters for my personal merchandise. And I do research as well. I just picked up some bookmarks, and that's literally why I was looking at bookmarks today. I have some really nice Christmas ones, Victorian, and I just sold one I think a day or two ago for 40. So it's bookmarks can sell. Type in bookmark and celluloid if you really want to see some higher priced ones. And I've sold celluloid bookmarks for like $110 all day long. Just oddball ones, all the way up into the 1913 era. I think the newest one I ever sold that was celluloid was like 1913. I don't catalog them like everybody else does. There's more involved in what we do with labor and the rules. Now, I'm not telling anybody anything specifically on what you should or shouldn't do for your business, but not everybody has to take an inventory like a traditional business. Now, you're going to have to research that yourself and talk to an accountant on what you do. there's a certain percentage of your business, if it's labor and things like that, that can adjust how you do your inventory. I do have a spreadsheet that I put together already for this week, that I'll pop out and just show an explanation on doing inventory for you. We did start out doing it that way. We don't do anything traditional with what most people would do or consider, for an inventory. There's a lot of legality to doing stuff like that. So what I do is not what I would recommend for most people, but I do have two separate accountants. We've talked to lawyers and things like that. I paid the initial consultation fees, and we've paid to sit in offices with people. Plus, I've worked in establishments that did inventory, religiously every single month. And you're talking a couple $100,000 worth of stuff they had to count. But the legal practices, it's based on how much your sales are per year, whether you have to do certain things like inventory and how regularly. For the IRS, what you do, let's say you pick a certain way to do your accounting for your taxes. You just need to be consistent and do it the same way every single time. No deviations, no, screwy numbers or anything else like that. You're going to find some people are going to find some major issues with doing inventory on eBay, with values going up and down and things like that, because at some point you're going to end up trashing them. And there's a lot to doing inventory for, um, you know, 500,000 items or whatever we have in house right now. We've got like 40,000 items up right now, and I probably, have a couple 100,000 that are just sitting here. Um, Again, I've got nothing into the stuff pretty much because we get it so dirt cheap. That's why paper is just such a great category. So I will give you, as I said, an inventory spreadsheet. I'll spread it all out for you. It's got, every column you can imagine. You can split it up by categories. So if you're doing like 10 different categories, and then it'll split up your cost, your eBay fees, and the whole works. Now, to do something like that, you're going to have to download, your eBay uh, end of the month sheet. You can actually use that to link to the Excel sheets, just like I have on the my profit and loss and in the whole works, and the other video I have in Excel. It's always good, JI, to have a system to do everything and to do it the same way every single time. I do everything the same way. My forms are all done at the end of the week. My projections are all done at the end of the week. We look at them throughout the day, but I don't balance my sheets out to the end of every week. In a restaurant or a retail establishment, that's how we did it. So I've always done end of week balance out on Sunday night. That's just what we do. So Monday morning starts my week, the beginning of the week. I do it every week the same time. I get up every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, whether my kids go to school or not. I was up this morning at 6. So let's see here. I think I got a couple more. I do not promote items on Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest. I do not do that. I probably could, but right now we've got so much stuff selling. I haven't had the need to do it, honestly. As long as I'm paying for my labor, which we are. We had 3 people working this morning. My oldest son will be working in probably another hour, so he's a night person, so he works at nights. No big deal. Um, but I don't promote any of that. I haven't needed it. It hasn't been an issue. Michelle, advice on upgrading. Depends on what kind of store you have. Let's see, and now paying. The more you list, the more it's going to look like you should upgrade your store. I'm not sure what kind of store level you have now. I didn't really have a chance to look at your account. Maybe I will tonight, just because I do have the email between us. So I'll go from there. One thing I was going to say is, if somebody would like I'm not going to be charging for critiques or anything like that. That's not anything that I'm looking here to do. I'm not doing these videos to get you to buy something for me at this point. I'd be happy for you to buy my artwork and all, but I only want you to buy something because you like it. But if somebody's interested, we could do an episode on a critique of one person's eBay store, but you'd have to share it with everybody is the only thing. So I'm not sure on, how comfortable somebody would be like that. But a video tomorrow, if there's anybody who's interested. Who, let's say, I'll pick a random person out of there. If somebody says yes, they're interested in doing it, we can get together. But I'll be actually exploring your store on the video. So if you're not comfortable with that, avoid that. But if somebody is interested, I would do a video on that, maybe once a month or something. Maybe we can do that if I get enough people that are interested in having their store critiqued. I'm straight to the point. So, if your feelings are hurt easily, I probably wouldn't want to recommend doing it. But I'm just going to lay it out there, if I see mistakes. So if there is anybody who's interested in doing that, I'll be happy to do maybe one a month or something. I'd also thought about doing, an extra live show, extra one or two a month, just to answer the questions as long as I have enough questions. Last live show, our first one, we could have probably went for a lot longer since I had a bunch of questions still I hadn't even gotten to at that point. But just some issues to throw out there. Do I use auction houses to get rid of things? Yes. Hang on just a second. Local auction houses are great for that. The only problem with some of these local auction houses, if it's something I can't sell, usually they're in on the loop here too, and they know a lot of what goes on. So they may not want to sell it because they'd make higher profits selling higher dollar items than, our leftovers and stuff. But that would be like a box lot at the very end on what's called like table cleanup. So if you haven't been to a live auction, I would honestly recommend every single person one live auction just to go to, just even if you don't buy anything, just spend 30 minutes there. You don't have to do anything other than get a number, sit there and look and see how it goes. And you can kind of judge, pull out your phone and look at the prices stuff are going for and look at what's selling to see, if these people are making any money. Some of the people around here just go nuts on live auctions and they're spending twice what the items go for on eBay. And I'm dumbfounded all the time when I see that. But maybe they've got some other system or some other way to sell it better than I'm aware of. I just go by what I see on eBay for the most part. Philip Morris bookmarks can go for a lot of money. Some of those are from the 30s and 40s, and they have famous actors and actresses on them. And some of those too, the like Philip Morris items, may not necessarily be bookmarks, but they could be. For this is Vamp Night 5. They could actually be like bridge cards. So just kind of watch out on that. Some of the bridge cards literally look like bookmarks too. Bridge cards sell too, so either or, that's another paper item, bridge cards. And I think I may have shown some in a real early video from like a couple of months ago. If you haven't watched all my videos, I'm not trying to glorify my videos or anything, but there's a lot of stuff that I've covered in some of my earlier videos, paper wise, that a lot of people just don't discuss at all, and that we still make a ton of money on. I've said this before. I've said again, paper is our number one thing, and research is key to getting all this to work. Let's see here. Anybody who wants to critique, please post it on the next video, tomorrow's video, if you do want to critique. And I'm just going to let somebody randomly pick one of the people here. I don't know how to fairly do it, or I'll put some names on a piece of paper and we'll just pull a name out here. But I promise you it will be fair. Do I do slides? The Violet Lemon, I do a ton of slides. Um, Violet Lemon, maybe you're a jazz aficionado, only by that name kind of sounds familiar, but slides are awesome. I've sold slides into the hundreds. We sold a Big Bopper slide. I don't know if you know who the Big Bopper was, but he died with Richie Valens and Buddy Holly on the Winter Fantasy Tour, and I sold some of those for like $600 a slide. So slides go very well. I just had a group of slides from 1955 Powerama show. I think it was in Chicago, and we got like 65 a piece for those. There's still some up, but all the high dollar good ones already sold. But those are items you pick up for the pennies and pennies. You can pick up a whole carousel of slides sometimes for just a couple dollars. I even see them at Savers or Half before it's closed, and Goodwill you'll see them at too occasionally. The negatives, you can actually do them. I've got light tables, which I showed in another video on some of my tools of the trade. With a light table, you can shoot a good copy of that with your camera and then just digitally reverse the picture. So now you have an image and you don't have to waste money or do anything with transposing the photo or having a print made of it. That's how I do all of them. I'll usually throw even the slides up on a light table. I have a OCR slide scanner too, but I never use the thing. It's just a nuisance, and the software doesn't work as well. I have to do it in compatibility mode, and it's a nuisance. So literally, a light table is the best thing if you're doing a lot of slides and finding negatives. Negatives do sell, and they do sell very high. I sold a negative, just a 4x6 negative of a like a World War II soldier riding a Harley, a government issued Harley Davidson, and I got like $60 for the negative. And the gentleman who bought it for me was going to make postcards out of it for a local Harley store. So, all that stuff, if you buy a negative like that, you own the rights to that image. You can print it, you can do what you want. That's why I've talked about in the past. If you don't have the skills to do like artwork for postcards, like our business on the side is doing the postcards on Halloween, you can print negatives from stuff you've bought. you own the rights to that. That's a one of a kind negative. No one else is going to own that negative. There's a slight chance you run into like a family member, but who claims ownership to that negative would be you. It's in your possession as long as you have like a receipt showing you bought it. I mean, I've never had an issue with that. And we have printed postcards of negatives too, but that's just a little sideline there. Let's see here. Do you put two accounts together or do you each one separately? I'm not sure on how you're talking about putting two accounts together. We have two anchor stores that we pay separately for. They have two separate account names. And then we have a third one that's just the small store because we just don't have enough on it. But we have two stores, each with around 20,000 items in it. Um, we may boost our third store up to another, 10,000 and then do a third anchor store. It's cheaper that way. That's the biggest reason. The values on the stamps and the postcards, there's literally nothing in those stamps. They're almost nothing and almost never worth anything. Once in a blue moon, the cancellation on a postcard can be worth a lot of money. And once in a blue moon, like one in a million, you're going to run into a stamp possibly on the back of those. Um, Postcard stamps that are usually worth money are like Zeppelin stamps. Type in Zeppelin and a US. It's an airmail stamp. There's three different ones that are worth money. I've had them all. I probably have a couple of them here right now. Zeppelins are usually the only ones that you're going to find on modern day postcards. Or there's one error that should be a 2 cent stamp, but it's actually a number five printed out of sync on a sheet. And there's one other stamp that you can run into, and that's an oddball one. I'd have to even research which one it was to tell you, but there's one other stamp that you're going to run into in the 1910 era that you usually see. You're not going to run into an inverted Jenny or anything like that. And if you don't know what an inverted Jenny is, type in inverted Jenny and look at it on a Google search. It's one of the highest priced U.S. postage stamps ever sold. I've seen one at a philatelic show once in my life, one single stamp, and one stamp of these is like a couple $100,000. Um, let's see here. Yeah, prices have gone high on the local live auctions, and that's why I say try to go to ones that do not offer online bidding and broadcast everywhere. Some of the little local small town ones are the ones I go to. The ones that are just the old timers, that just don't get into broadcasting or advertising. They may just throw it up on Craigslist, and that's about it. JI patches. Yes, patches sell. I had a jacket. It was a 1950s U.S. Air Force jacket from a fighter tactical squadron stationed in Germany. And the guy bought the jacket, the whole patch jacket, the whole works for like $89. He told me he just wanted me to cut off the jacket, the patch, and send him just the patch. The patches are worth more money in most cases. Um, I can show you some good patches maybe in a video coming up from some of the hauls I've got. I've got some really nice. I've got a tank killer patch that's handmade, and I've got a first division patch that was handmade. Patches sell incredibly well. I've sold some bomber jacket, the big leather ones in the $400 range. Those are things that's going to take you years to find a couple good ones of those. I've only had two or three in my life. So patches do sell though. World War II patches are before the best. Some Vietnam patches like destroyer, tank destroyers, yeah, the Huey squads or anything like that. That stuff always seems to sell. I'm not up on Vietnam War era as much as I am World War II and before. Those are my specialty. I love World War II. I'm going to show you probably some items here, military coming up here. I've got a ton of military items that we've hauled. And I'm talking a ton helmets and things like that. So I'm probably going to touch base a couple videos here scattered throughout on military too. For those of you who see that too. World's Fair items are the bomb. 1876. I just showed a label in yesterday's video. That 1876 is from the Centennial World's Fair, the Centennial Expo. I got 125 bucks just because it said that on the label. Had that label not said the World's Fair on it, it would probably have been worth like 50 bucks. Um, Poster stamps for many of the World's Fairs always sell covers, envelopes, trade cards. Anything pre, say, 1933 or before World's Fair always sells. 1933, the Chicago Fair stuff sells as well too, but the newer you get, the less they sell. Or even like the 1915 Pan American or what's it, Pan Pacific Expo, I think is what it is. Any of that stuff, Golden Gate Expo from the 30s can sell, but it just depends on what it is. Like the Golden Gate stuff, there were several beer companies there. Like Acme was one of the big ones from the Golden Gate Expo. So anything you see that says Golden Gate and Acme beer, you want to grab. I think we sold two of the decals from there for like $80. Probably if you do a search on completed auctions, you'll probably see it. I think we sold those a couple months back. But all the World's Fair stuff sells, all the early stuff, the paper stuff especially, the trade cards. There was trade cards all the way up into the 30s, so you can see those as well too from the newer age. Let's see here. Let's see here. 30s pinup girls, those always sell. 4x5s, you have the negatives. You just have the negatives. Go ahead and if you got a light table, get a light table. If you don't have a light table, you can literally take a piece of glass, throw some bulbs under it, a couple lamps, and put a sheet of paper on the top of it. And you should be able to use that just enough to get some good, decent photos of that, where you can transfer it in the computer. Just do a reverse, a negative in your whatever system you have. I'm sure even let's say I can't think of the name of the program. There's a free graphics program, GIMP. It's called GIMP. You can get GIMP if you don't have anything else. I use Anime Studio to edit any photo I need. It does everything, And if I don't use Anime Studio, Magna Studio is the other one I think I use. Both of those, either one of those. Let's see here. I get a lay list not inside a current price. Okay. The pinup negatives, you can look and find some on right now. I guarantee it. I look at that kind of stuff occasionally because we do get stuff, and I've got a box of negatives. I probably got a couple thousand negatives. I just usually throw those in a bin. Someday I say I'll go through them, but I haven't as of yet. Um, Again, if you need any questions on prices on things, I don't mind you posting some photos in my Facebook group, the Auction Professor. It's under that as well. Do you keep records of costs and sales separate or lump them together? Um, on all three stores, at the end of the day, they all go together, but I do keep them separate on spreadsheets. I have a master spreadsheet that does everything. It's got every single thing. And at the end of the day, I do each one separately. So I've got one for Amazon. I've got one for Discogs and the whole works, and each one of my eBay accounts has its own as well. And at the end of the day, I just all pulls to one spreadsheet at the end on its own. Everything has links to it. If you didn't watch, I've got a video on just doing Excel. If you download in all the eBay end of the month sheets like your sales reports and the PayPal sales sheets, all that stuff can be transferred without doing anything other than clicking a couple buttons all through all your sheets in Excel. So you can tie all that information in without having to manually enter anything really. And as I said, watch the video. I'm going to post one for your inventory too. I won't go into how to bring all this stuff together like we do because most people don't have three stores that they tie together. The end of the day, all I look at is what we sold for the whole month. Obviously, I make sure we keep going up on my eBay sales on each one of my accounts. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the money came from. Just so at the end of the day, I've got a nice chunk of profit coming in every single month. And at the end of the month is when I look at it, specifically for everything. I know where I'm at pretty much any day of the week, but I'm not looking at an overall, hey, where we're going to be. I'm just doing rough numbers and things like that. I can tell you what we sold today right now, because we just pay attention to that. It's nice to know whether you're up or down. And, as I said, I had 3 employees working today. My son will be the 4th one today. And I always like to know that I made enough money to pay for those shifts. And again, I'm looking at residual income. So they list a couple hundred items, and I get sales, from here on out for months, from that same list date. Paper card shows, they can be. The closest one around here, I've been to it before. It's like a 3-hour drive. Usually, if we go to the postcard show, we spend a night or two in Hockin Hills. If you're not familiar with where that is, type in Hockin Hills. It's an awesome place. But there are postcard shows. Columbus and Cincinnati, if you're in the Ohio area, do have them. They're not super great for some of it because most of the people there are trying to get higher dollars for their items. Usually, if I go to a show like that, I'll go through their junk bins and usually pull out a bunch, quarter 50-cent cards, things that might go for $7, $8, $10. Maybe I'll bring some cards and try and swap for some merchandise too. That usually works for me. I'll hold on some better cards, things that I might have extras of. And that's just how I do it. You use your iPad with blank text page for my slides. Whatever works for you. I would have never thought about an iPad. I'm not an Apple person. I've been, Windows PC base, my whole life. Just I always hated how Apple kind of locked you in. I know it's not that way anymore, but I'm just not a big fan. Pilot's Estate. Now that would be interesting to see. Airline slides sell very well. I sell, this is for Michelle Cox Trout. I sell a lot of airline stuff. All the movies, I do 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter movies. If it has an airplane in it, it's going to sell. I mean, no question about it. An average price on even a 50-foot reel with good airplane shots is like $30 for any 8 millimeter film that has good, airport footage on it. Airplane slides do sell. Old hotels, again, back to California and Tahoe. Tahoe slides, type in Tahoe and slide. That's almost as high price as some of the postcards you see. So if I see lots and I'm at a estate sale, there's thousands of slides, and there's anything that says Anaheim, California, Yosemite, or anything like that, I snap them up, and I'll pay high money on some of those, especially if I get to look through enough to see, hey, there's red border Kodaks in those. Red border Kodaks are what you're looking for if you're getting slides. Kodachromes, those are just the bombs when you're doing it. The quality, even to this day, on 70-year-old slides is just incredible. It looks brand new, and it's crisp and clear and sparkly. I mean, they're just nice slides. Any of those kind of slides, even from the 40s still. Okay, let's see here. Annie, you have a question. Limited edition comic related item with many artists' autographs and impeccable provenance. The one listed for 15,000, if it's an autograph authentication, they're wanting a lot more for it for their services. So you're probably going to crank up the price, like if it's slab too, if they've actually got a grading on it, you'd have to send your slab have off to have it slabbed as well. And if you have an Amazon account, you can get a discount on slabs through Amazon. It's one of the little perks for having the store on Amazon. Um, just because it's 15,000 doesn't mean it's ever going to sell for that. I sell comics, and we did some autograph ones too, because I've was a comic book nerd at one time, and sci-fi before it was cool. And we used to hang out in the stores, and I used to get autographs from all kinds of people, all the time. Cry for Dawn, I think, was one of the ones we got the first autographs on those, and we ended up holding on to them for like 10, 12 years. And then we ended up getting hundreds for him when we sold them. He drew some, characters on the comics and stuff for us. It was just a small time at the time, things like that. You're going to run into people like that. Stan Lee I've met, he signs autographs at all the shows. He's been to the comic book show here. I think it was Detroit, the one we saw him at. But on something like that, you're just going to have to hunt around for a price. Look off eBay, even you can Google a search on that. Um, it's hard to say on what the autographs are worth. It just any day of the week they could go for a different price. So it's potluck on any of that stuff. One day something can sell for 5,000, and the next day it only goes for 1,000. There's just so many limited amount of people that buy certain high dollar items. There may only be one or two people in the whole world that would buy something for $10,000, like a specific comic book. It's just so hard to say on stuff like that. Let's see here. It depends on what what's the comic, Annie. Just curiosity's sake, if you can throw that in there. Now, Pop Psych, you don't sell records on JI. That's just the price that they actually go for everybody. What Pop Psych is it's a price storehouse. It'll pick up auction prices from all over the globe, and it'll combine them into a referenced database where you can search them. If you saw it on Pop Psych for 150, that means somewhere on the internet, whether it be eBay or not, that specific 45 sold for $150. Now you're going to have to judge if you're going by Pop Psych by how old that listing was. If the listing was, a couple of years old, it's not going to go for that same price anymore. The market changes on records constantly, especially 45s. Some of the rare soul records, they only go up, but for the most part, records fluctuate drastically. But again, that 150 was a price it sold at somewhere on the internet, not Pop Psych though. Discogs usually sells less than anywhere else. That's usually for cheaper records, at least for my benefit. When we list on Discogs, it's stuff that's not higher dollar. It's just not worth the time to list on eBay or pay fees for. So 76 signatures on it. It's a poster, Schultz. So you're talking it's a Peanuts, I would assume. That's an iffy one. If it's a poster, I would say that would probably be something you'd want to call like Sotheby's on. And they do have a once a year auction. Heritage House is another one that we've used in the past too, and Skinner. Those are the three key ones that I would use. I've used them all before. They have a minimum; it has to be 1,000. But with something like that, if it's 15,000 on eBay on an auction house like that, it could go for 25,000. If it's got Charles Schultz's autograph on it, I believe his autograph's into the thousands on its own for a good, certified copy. They would have to have it authenticated. They would probably pay for it if like Sotheby's or something took it up. They would photograph it and they'd probably put it in like a 6 months down the road auction. Usually, if you're going to one of those auction houses, it's going to be a long haul for you. So make sure you don't need the money right now, and make sure you don't mind waiting on it because literally, as I said, you might not see a dime from an auction like one of those deals for months, 6, 7 months. I think the last one we did, um, it was, oh geez, it was like 7 or 8 months before we got a check from them. And the percentage they take is pretty high, but it's going to sell for way more than it would on eBay or any physical, internet auction site. Do we sell anything else? We sell, you name it, we sell it. Banks, toys, books, paperbacks, clothing, um, smalls, toys. Let me just. This is just a random box right here. I don't. It might be kind of hard to see, but this is just one random box. Anything metal, anything. There's lighters in here. There's like 100 lighters in here. There's buckles. We sell any kind of toy you can imagine if it's pre, say, 1980 and even some 1980s. Um, Toys are a huge mover for us too. I sell at least a toy or two every single day of the week. Slides, camera equipment, posters, movie memorabilia. We do autographs as well too. Old newspapers, magazines. I mean, just anything you could think of, we sell. I mean, soda collectibles, tin signs, car-related items, car parts, car radios. Um, I've picked up a lot of OEM radios lately, and I don't know what it is, but they're at the thrift stores or my pickers end up finding them. And usually I pay $1 or two a piece. An OEM radio that still works, and most everyone I get, I don't usually test them out because I don't want to have to mess with it. Everyone I've sent out so far has worked. Worst case scenario, I might take a ding on one if they don't, but I've never had one not work. Usually, when you have an OEM radio or something like that that you find, someone pulled it out to upgrade. The OEMs just almost never burn out. That's why you see them in cars from the 50s where they still work. So that's just another item that you can sell. Um, let's see here. Did I just mix something? Let's see here. It was a special project created for a charity. I would go to an auction house, Annie. I would go to a major auction house and just see what they say. Call like Skinner's or Heritage or Sotheby's. They're mostly New York sites. They have a website. It's something like that. If you can, give them a ballpark and what you see them going for now. If that auction, the other one you saw is from a company that authenticates those, chances are those three places I named are going to know them personally because they do send off stuff to get authenticated every time they get them, just because they don't sell anything that has any chance of being fake. Bend to Virginia Ranger Cody. Let's see here. Yeah, Pop Psych though. If you see it on Pop Psych, that doesn't necessarily mean it's sold on eBay though. Just keep that in mind. That's just a general. Pop Psych gets sales from like 5 or 6 sites. They don't get all the small ones. They don't do like the sites that I just mentioned. They won't do Sotheby's or Skinner's or any of those. Heritage, though, does do a lot of stuff like that. Media, they do comics, they do records. I actually have a subscription to their auction catalogs because once in a while there'll be something there that we buy to for our own personal issues. Let's see here. Swizzle sticks, Juan Rego. Yes, swizzle sticks sell. I've sold some. The glass ones sell the best, especially if they have figural designs on like people or shapes or real fanciful ones. The stir sticks sell too. I sell the stir sticks, sometimes 15, $20 a piece. Not all of them are worth it, but if you get a big bunch of them, you can usually get a good profit on a bunch of stir sticks and swizzle sticks just as well. Some of the flea markets we go to, there's people that just wear shirts and buttons that say, I buy swizzle sticks. and it's usually old timers. They'll buy them from anybody, any kind. They've got I don't know how many in their collection. I've talked to a few of them before. This is how you meet people too when you go to these places. This is how I got pickers. Guy might want swizzle sticks from you, and what does he get, in return? So you get a deal with the guy. I'll get you all my swizzle sticks if you find, records. You call me first. Especially if it's something that you've got a good source to get. I've got a record guy. One of the guys who gets me records, I supply him with stuff. So things that I don't specifically. So I'm not going to go into detail on that, but we have a swap deal. So whenever I find something in these big lots or I'm buying at a wholesale, he gets first dibs on certain items, and I always get his records, the first dibs on his records. And that's just how you get these pickers to set you up and stuff. And then at that point, I usually come out ahead because if I'm buying stuff for him, I'm usually not paying a lot of money, so I'd probably get him cheaper by swapping than I would if I had to pay him cash straight out for the same amount of records or whatever I'm buying from him. I have not seen a dip in sales, honestly. We are actually up like 17% right now. Like on the live auction you're talking about, if you're talking about like an international, most of those are live auction with the hammer down. Sotheby's, Skinner, and Heritage all do live auctions. They're internet based too, so people can bid in house or online. Those are best to sell, but not to buy. Just keep that in mind. But again, summer dip. There isn't a summer dip with putting as much up as we got. We got more invested in our labor to get the items up, obviously, because we're spending just blowing out labor. But right now I'm still ahead, even after paying off all my labor fees. You know, if I've got a guy working for 4 straight hours and he lists 20 or 30 or whatever postcards he's listing in each hour, and I sell one postcard worth $40, in the first hour he's up, it's just paid for. And that's literally what happens. I was keeping a tally every day until this week started, and we just keep paying for it, so I'm not even worried about it anymore. Let's see here. Yeah, swizzle sticks are pretty cool. Good profit margin. Again, with the glass ones especially. Most people don't know what they are, so type in swizzle stick if you're not sure. You'll see some into the hundreds too. They go way back. If I'm not mistaken, there's Victorian swizzle sticks. And even along that line, there's sterling silver straws, metal straws, from the Victorian era all the way up to the 20s and 30s. And those show up in swizzle stick assortments too. But those straws are like $40 a piece, the ones that we've had. So just an FYI on that. Wool rugs are pretty good too. Super fine is 239. Yeah, you're going to run into a problem because of the weight. Would be my assumption on the 100% loomed wool rugs, and especially if they're like Spanish designs. Those just don't seem to sell as well, or Peruvian or something along that line. We've had them before, but again, the weight's your issue because a rug weighs a ton of money. You're probably talking 30 or $40 to ship it. And if it's just an average one with nothing really fancy, some of those rugs are only worth 50 to 100, $150, depending what they are. If you're going to sell something like that, like a wool, the wool blankets sell very well, especially the wool airline blankets, or the military blankets. I usually can get rid of a good military blanket. You might pay 3, 4, $5. I usually see the military blankets when people are moving, and they usually use them for like cushioning furniture, believe it or not. But if they say U.S., Med Department or USA or USM or something, USN on them, all those blankets sell. I'll pass up a rug to buy a blanket any day of the week because the blankets are still usable, and most people aren't going to throw an old rug down to use unless it's something really fancy. And then even if it is, they don't want to walk on it because it looks nice or it's fancy. So it defeats the purpose there. Halloween postcards. Um, I've been going back and forth on that. I'm actually got a video together right now on a time lapse of actually drawing them out, which I was debating on posting. Um, I've been going back and forth on that. We already have some of the postcards in. We don't have them all in yet. The model wise, I'll show you something here today, I guess. I guess the light might kind of kill this. Um, this is what we've done here. This is actually a trilobite. This is actually the model we've been working on. I've got a ton of these made up. It's got a base that goes with it, and it's got a wood base. I have a wood base laying around here I can show you. Actually, I don't, but I can show you a couple of these. Again, these are cast here at the house. I've got a couple dozen of these already ready to go. I've already got boxes for them. I sculpted this. I got a video coming out soon on the sculpting of this. I don't want to release too much on these until I actually have, some trademark stuff printed up on them too. But these are going to be up on Amazon. It's Trilly the Trilobite. I've got some painted up mocks of these as well too. I've got my clay sculpt of these here too. I'm going to give one of these away actually on the channel here when we get closer to release date. But if somebody's going to have a chance to get one for free, we still haven't decided whether we're going to sell them all painted up or not painted up. And when you're doing models like this and you're actually molding them yourself, you don't want to sell ones that aren't painted usually, because then people can take a mold of this and rip you off and start selling the same ones. That's one reason you don't do too much and show them around too much on these. But this is a full scope. This is an actual solid plastic one. This is our first finished one out of the mold to make sure that all the pieces fit. It's not complete. There's still going to be some wire. Let me step off screen. It's going to have some brass. It's basically a brass, wood, and plastic kit. It's going to be, but there's going to be some antennae that come off the front, off a spot here. It's going to have some antenna off the back, which the real ones have. Again, this is a custom sculpt that I did. This is something that we've been working on here for a little while. But it's all done. It's all been matched up. I've got a base that it's molded to, so it looks like it's a diorama. It's going to be in like a flying position. You can type in flying trilobite on eBay and you'll see some of the fossils that these are supposed to be. If you don't know what a trilobite is, type that into. Dinosaurs always sell, and this I will own the copyright to. No one can copy this design. That's the reason we've not done too many of the other sculpts that I've done. And I've done figures before. The one that I still do these days is the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. If you haven't seen that, there's a video back in some of mine that I've done showing you some of the molds. But that's what we're going to be doing. And the Halloween's coming out as well too. I actually nicked my finger and had to worry about stitches on doing one of these, and that's why it hasn't been out as quick. I'm a nut with X-Acto blades, so once in a while I'll get carried away and end up cutting myself. But that's what's coming out there. I'll put something together on the Halloween as well too. As I said, I do have a time lapse if anybody's interested. I also have a Santa Halloween mix where it's a Santa Claus card with some Halloween. Um, I saw all the sets for Nightmare Before Christmas, and I've always been a big fan of the oddball outsider art. So that's just me. So like the video yesterday, I know a lot of people weren't as happy about the content. For me, it's the artistic of the pieces. So I apologize if it wasn't your thing, but once in a blue moon, you're going to see me put something that's out there. Yesterday, I just was dying to know how to use that program to the fullest. And so I played around with it until I figured it all out. And that's just what I do. So, hopefully you enjoyed something out of it. But, I do play around and I do some artistic stuff on the side religiously. If I'm not doing eBay, I'm doing art. Somebody asked me if I was going to the eBay Live. I don't go to anything like that. I'd rather spend my time making money than spending money. Nothing against the eBay Live. We've talked about going in the past before. And I don't mind spending the money if I'm going to get some more out of it. But for something like that, it's just a fun event. And I'm in the mindset, I'm getting older and I've wasted 20 years of my life. And now it's either now or never. We've been hitting it really hard. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about making money and not earning money, or not spending it on traveling. Um, let's see if I missed anybody here. Do I cut up vintage magazines? Yes, I do. In tools of the trade, I've talked about. I've showed some equipment you can use to cut these things up better. Cut them up nice and square if you're going to cut up magazines. I don't mind cutting up any magazine in the world. Take them apart first. Take the staples out of it, and then cut it out once the staples are when you're only attacking that page. What I see most people do is they'll take an X-Acto blade without taking the staples out and just cut down the edge of the page. You want as much paper as you can so these folks that are buying them can frame them or do something more enjoyable than just holding onto a piece of half ripped up paper on the side. Don't cut them with scissors either. It looks very unprofessional. Let's see here. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Love that movie. Yeah, that's a good movie. A lot of people didn't know what it was. Yeah, we do. We've done toys before. We're actually working on action figures as well too. We want to do a Maker Con. I don't know if you what a Maker's Fair, Maker's Con is, but that's what we're looking for. We'd like to do Dragon Con and set up at a Dragon Con with some of our artwork. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Tested, but when we get one of these finished in the box and all ready to go, I'm sending one to Norm at Tested, and hopefully they'll put it on. But that's just something that we do. I love the makers fairs that they show on Tested. So again, Adam Savage is Tested. If you haven't seen that, that's the kind of thing that I'm into. I know it's like nerdy, I guess you'd say these days, but I love that stuff. He's got 3 million subscribers. It's not just me. But I love the Adam Savage. He's probably the best one of the stuff that I get into. Norm shows some good stuff on there too, if you're not familiar with the channel. Again, as I said, like Violet Lemon, you don't have to, be a super artist to do stuff. Even negatives will sell. You reprint postcards. You can reprint artwork that's, on a negative. There's lots of things. You could take a photo and, sell some of those locally. Just set it up nice and design some, with the computer, text and stuff, and sell it to local businesses. They buy them for Halloween. That's how I found our niche here, was setting up, Halloween giveaways for the stores that weren't offering. They were just giving candy away when they could be giving out things that show who they were with their name and store number or coupons on it. And they were something that someone would hold on to because it had nice artwork on it. That's the niche that we got from doing that. People were just giving out junk, without their name on it. Why not give out something that someone's going to want to keep that will always show that store's name on it? And that's how I sold it at them, and we sold a whole bunch like that. But at this point in our life, I want to do my own thing. I'm, sick of doing it for somebody else. And that's, why this works for us, because I just want to bomb it with our own stuff, you know. Yeah, Tested is good. Since doing YouTube, YouTube hasn't, given me any really increase in sales that I would say. Just listing, two, 300 items every single day of the week with our employees, and that's just, Monday through Friday anyway. I've been trying to take the weekends off here, other than, doing hauls. But sales go up. I don't see any YouTube increase from it or anything like that. Um, Yeah, I like Exacto. Everything Exacto. I've probably got a couple hundred Exacto blades in a bin. One day, if anybody's interested, I've got a big, huge, tall sheet music cabinet that's just lined up with art supplies. I've got a pencil case that's an old, like a jeweler's case, wooden drawered, and I must have, eight, 10,000 pencils. I know that sounds crazy, but I buy them at all these sales, and you never can have enough vintage pencils. I use them all. I've got every kind of pencil you can imagine: watercolor and pastel pencils, and ink pencils. You name it. If they make a pencil of it, I probably own it. Prismacolor, I own every single color they make. Same with the markers that they have too. Yeah, I don't do any podcasts, honestly. 5,000 postcards, duds. If you can't sell them individually, put together like five or six, or maybe a lot of 10 from the same city. That's what we do too, if you feel like doing it that way. Take, a group shot and then one of each face, and list them up that way. A lot of 10 vintage postcards from the same city, same era, same city. We end up usually doing pretty good on that. If you pay $1 for them and you list a big bunch of them, you're usually going to get $2 or $3 minimum back, blowing them out the door in a lot of postcards from the same city. That's again back to bulk, and like junk drawer lots. And you can throw some of those in junk drawer lots, put together a mixed lot, of a junk drawer stuff, and do it that way too. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have a video, other YouTubers have videos on the same thing. I didn't realize that till afterwards, but junk drawer lots always sell. And again, there is a video in my past videos on, how to sell what can't be sold. And that's going to show you on junk drawer lots. You'll be surprised at the prices some of those go for. So if you're having problems selling some things, that always seems to work for me. Always. We haven't even had to put them together lately, but come winter, after, my summer labor is gone and we're just using, labor after school, we'll be back to doing junk drawer lots and in bulk lots as well too. Right now I don't have to do it because I've got so many helpers and listing. The pharmacy pens, yeah, I got a bunch of those. I worked in restaurants, and all the pharmacies will go and buy free lunch for all the doctor's offices. So they'd always come in and leave me like tons of pens. And I always asked for the fancy ones. They look like needles or, injection things and, medical devices. Those do sell. I usually have to sell them in a bunch, like 10 or 15 of them, that they sell. And at one point, I had a couple hundred of those, just because, they'd always give them to us if I took care of their order for their doctors and stuff. But yeah, pharmacy pens can sell. The vintage ones, especially like the 70s and 80s ones, they can sell for 10, $15 a pen. So, it just depends on the pen. $75 to $100, recommend not doing an auction. Most items I do, I honestly do, buy it now. Good till canceled, buy it now. Again, I'm still running. I got like, I think 25 more days on our test, and I will be able to tell you without a doubt, we're running right now 100 items on auction. Or no, I'm sorry, we're running right now 100 items on 30-day, relisting manually, and then we're running basically the exact same 100 items on a good till canceled for the same time frame. And we're going to judge and see, and they're better items. So I didn't pick just condom ones. I wanted ones that would actually have a chance on selling. And that's just a test we're doing now. I've done this test, a year or two ago to see, and it didn't make any difference. I won't give any results out until we know for sure, and another 25 or so days. But if you're interested in knowing, my honest opinion on the 30-day versus auction, I'll give you that. But on most items, I list most every item on a buy it now, make an offer. And I say that because in an auction, if you put something up, even if there's say 10 bidders on it, let's say you put an item up for $100. We'll just do a round flat number. You put it up for $100 and there's only two or three people on that are interested in it. And one of them just fizzles out at 110. You're only going to sell for 110. But let's say you put that same card up for, $200 on a buy it now, and a person doesn't know what it's going to go for on that buy it now. $200 to him might be, wow, I'd pay $200 for that car. I might as well just buy that card now instead of risking somebody else buy it. So you usually come out ahead, and I don't know who else will tell you that, but most everyone should tell you that. If they're not telling you that, they're steering you in the wrong direction. There's a few others I watch, Rally Roots. I'm almost positive I've heard them talk about doing buy it nows and everything. And that's literally what I try to do on pretty much everything that we do. Again, there's very few items that we do on auction. There's some crazy oddball items that I have no clue on that I may attempt to do that. But if I do attempt to put it in an auction, I'm going to put it at a real high price. I'll put it at what I might think a buy it now might go in for. And then just see what the feedback is on it. See if there's any comments. Usually someone's going to tell you you're way off base if you list it too high. Or you'll get a comments you got it listed wrong, or some they're going to tell you something about it. That's just how they end up working every time whenever I put something up like that. The cigar labels that I got, as I said, I put those up. One of them's up like $4,000 starting bid. I'm going to wait till I get a bunch of watchers on it before I lower the price. And I'm not caring if I sell any of this stuff. We sold enough I spent $250 on the labels that you saw yesterday, and then as well a couple hundred more besides those that I showed in that video. And we've already sold four of them. One alone went for 125, so one of them I got half my money back on, just a couple days after I bought these things. So that's my goal. So I don't care if anything ever sets for a long time. That's just how it is. Get as much money as you can. Do it as a buy it now if you can afford to do that. Again, if you're just starting off though, you may not have the time or the ability to wait for these to sell for a high dollar amount. You'll need to flip them right away. So it just depends on where you're at in your business. In our business right now, I don't have to sell anything, right away. Never, So sometimes I'll get offers on stuff and they'll be like, well, are you interested in selling it or not? I'm like, I'm not in a hurry. I'm going to wait till I get the amount I want to get out of that item. But that's just how that works for us. You can buy books, large books of postcards online too, but just kind of watch out to make sure that they're not mounted in the book, or taped in the book. Sometimes I've run across, we bought them at a estate sale or something, a book of them to pull out, and come to find out I get home, somebody had put double stick tape on the back of the cards, and everywhere that tape was, you've now got a hole, a surface pull on that section of that card. So just take a good close look at them. Don't pay a ton if you can't see them all. If it's an auction and you can't see most of the cards, be very, very cautious because, if it's off eBay, they're only going to show you 12 pictures and they're only going to show you the ones that they think will make that lot sell. And don't buy from somebody who only sells postcards. Don't buy a book from anybody. Look at what they're selling besides that book. If all they're selling is, a couple thousand postcards, you're buying their junk. They're going to pull out the good postcards. So just keep that in mind. Look at what else they sell. Look at see sellers' other items. Every time you're going to bid on someone's stuff. If they're selling a ton of that stuff, don't bid on it. Stray away. I'm telling you straight out. I keep getting pop-ups here. Hang on just a second. Linens can sell too. I see someone commenting on linen. Linens can sell, but they don't sell as high as the other kinds. So just keep that in mind. 1910, 20s era is the peak period of what sells the best, apart from Tahoe cards. I don't care, Tahoe cards, even up into the 50s and 60s, those can go for hundreds of dollars. And I have looked, I think California is the number one selling area for postcards with more Tahoe selling than anything else. So, Tahoe cards, I can't tell you enough about California and Tahoe. We sold three cards today. Of those three, they were all Tahoe cards. First thing in the morning, first thing out the door, I sold a $30 card from Tahoe. Um, Diego, the German cards, if they're early and they say, oh shoot, oh, Demfur or Demfur or something along the line, DEM space FUR or something along the line, or Aus Dem or Dem Aus. Those are early ones, like circa 1910. Those are the only real good German cards you want to sell, and they're usually small towns and real pictures that will sell. Some of those can sell for big money, but for the most part, most of the foreign ones don't sell worth anything, unless they're military. If there's some military in there, you might get lucky and find some, early Kaiser shots or something along that line. Yeah, some of the German, as I said, there's not a lot of money in the German cards. We have sold some in like 60, 70 range, but they're very few and very far between. I just avoid foreign postcards, except China postcards or, German World War II postcards or World War One or things like that. There's some Pioneer era cards. Pioneer would be like the 1800s postcards. Now, some of the German postcards from the Pioneer age are worth money just because of what's on the back, the postmarks and the stamps, and some of the military feld posts they're called. That's what you want to look for on those. And if it's a specific feld post that's like on the front lines or in a ghetto or something like that, those are usually worth some big money. And I'm talking big money too. Yeah, estate, green thrifty life. Estate auctions are usually pretty good. Just make sure they're real marks. They're not recasts. Too marks. There's people that recast them. We've recast them here in the house as well too. Just pay good close attention to them. They should be clearly marked on the bottom if they're good marks ones. Not all marks are marked. Some of them will just have two little circles. I've got a video on marks toys way back from like 2 or 3 months ago. And I go in and I actually show some of the markings on those too. But marks across the board usually sells for us. And I mean across the board. I don't think I have any marks left in the house. And I just showed some in just a video just the other day. I'll take that back. I have the dinosaurs still left, but most of them do sell. I'll sell the dinosaurs surely too. Lake Tahoe has money. It's a money area. I mean, California in general. Real picture postcards from California just sell in general. Early ones, 1910 postcards. There's a lot of money in California, and 1/8 of the population of this country lives in California. If you're unaware of that, so 1/8 of this whole country is in one state. So those people collect cards more than any other state, just because there's such a high population compared to the rest of the country. So 1/8 of the country, you've got many states it would take to equal what California has in population. That's why their electoral votes are so high in there. So just keep that in mind. The bigger the state, the more you're going to have in there. And there's a lot of high dollar money. We sell a lot of stuff to Hollywood area and in California in general. Any vintage signs or props and things like that, they must always go to California. We got lucky enough that we've started in when we were working at Disney, we were able to get stuff that was props or insider stuff from a shop called Sid Cahuenga's and stuff, and we learned look out for that stuff and what sells. So we do market specifically to the movie industry sometimes. So it's just another area you can market to. So I know we've got some inside information. I've got friends who work for Fox Afternoon in Phoenix, and we still have friends at Disney in Florida, and I've got a couple friends in Anaheim that work in that general area, or Whittier, California, to be specific, if you know where that's at. But I've been out there. I've been to their place and stuff. But anyway, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to be cutting it off in just a minute here. Yeah, California is the sixth largest economy. That is true, but they carry 1/8 of the population. So, that's why California cards, I guess, go for so high. But when you're in a mall, that's why it's a great thing to go to a mall to get them, because they separate them by state. And you got all the time in the world to look up your cards in a mall, antique mall. That's why I do the malls. It's where we learned to do this, starting in the malls and running into people and asking questions. But other like California, what else is worth money? Military and baseball. Baseball postcards sell for a ton of money. I've seen baseball postcards. I'm not up on sports personally. There was one called the Seals, and it's a baseball postcard. It's a real picture postcard. It's a drawing of actual, seals, the animals sitting on a beach somewhere. But all the faces of those seals are players from the team. And again, I don't remember the name of the team, but that card's like a $1,700 card. There's a Ty Cobb postcard that goes for $1,000 easy any day of the week. Baseball is probably second. Baseball players, baseball teams, railroad depots and railroad stations are the best too. Most every one of those sells. The scrapbook just went online from eBay the other day on some, and it went for like $1,000 of just depot cards. That's all it was in it. I mean, it was probably the highest price one I'd seen in a while. Depot cards are the bomb. So if you're looking for postcards, depot cards go very well. Celebrity stuff does sell. I wouldn't say Los Angeles. Most Los Angeles postcards aren't worth much at all. I see? I go and research these things. I'll sit there, while I'm doing something or something's uploading or someone's taking photos or I'm waiting to transfer something, and I'll just look up some random thing in a state. In California, I look up all the time. And then, as I said, I ran into somebody else on Facebook, or not on Facebook, on eBay, just randomly from one of my subscribers, and that's because I do check out and research these things all the time. I stay up on top of the areas that I sell in. There isn't a week that goes by that I don't check out what's top sellers, what's going for money, any new items that are hitting top of the lists. And I only do solds for those. If I'm just looking, I'm just trying to get an idea on changes in the market, and this is something that I do again every single week. Every single week I change and look and see what's going on. And I do that for records and postcards especially. Most other items, just no big deal on those. Like some of the coin banks. I buy coin banks. I got some today, and tins and things like that. They always sell, but records and postcards fluctuate drastically. So just keep that in mind. Um, if you want to know what brochures are the best, Route 66 brochures. And it doesn't always say Route 66 on the brochure, so you have to track down where that road is sometimes, because Route 66 wasn't a big deal, in its heyday when it first started. But as time went on, Route 66 used to be it. So any of the brochures from Route 66 are usually pretty good, and any brochures that would be on the roadways to Tahoe are good as well too. Brochures for Tahoe sell just as much as things as well too. The slides, the photos, all that stuff sells. A good scrapbook or something with photos from Tahoe can sell for 1,000, maybe even more than that. If it's got like inside shots, gambling shots, just Tahoe in general, that's what you want. Tahoe stuff always sells. So, I know that's reiterating that a lot, but I do because we sell it all the time. I buy everything Tahoe I can get my hands on. And there's other areas up. Placerville is the other city. Type in Placerville on eBay, and you're going to see high dollar ones too. Placerville is a crossroads area, I think, on the way to Tahoe. It's an hour away or something like that. I looked it up on the map once before, just because I like to know where this stuff is at. And when you're seeing an area that's worth some money, I try to see what other towns were around there to see what else I might need to look for and pull out. But any real picture postcards from circa 1910 California, you're pretty safe on, unless it's from a big city. Don't buy the ones from Los Angeles. Don't buy the big town ones, because there's a ton of those made. You want the smaller towns. Booklets don't usually sell. I've got some from Monterey. The only other area that I can say is the Monterey. There's a big golf course there. It's Santa Barbara, I think. It's Santa Barbara, Monterey area. Some of the booklets from Monterey sell, and the Tahoe ones sell, of course. But for the most part, I don't buy booklets. I'll show you some tomorrow because I did pick up a few. It's actually in the hall. I've literally got it sitting here waiting to shoot a video for tomorrow for the hall. But again, tomorrow it's going to be sheet music. It's going to be postcard, some postcards, not a bunch tomorrow. I didn't get a ton. And sheet music will be the highlight of it probably tomorrow, and some little oddball stuff, some tins and things like that. But I'm going to cut it off because we're already past the time here a little bit. And I do have some things to still do today before the end of the night, before I call it quits. Again, as I said, I work like 12-hour days or more. Today's more like 14 or better. But again, I stop and go. It's not like straight work all day long. But if anybody is interested on tomorrow's video, and I'll put a little note in there, post if you're interested in me doing your critique of your store. Again, I don't charge. I'm not looking to, get some new business started by doing that. Who knows, maybe in the future, but right now I don't really care about any of that. We're working on our sideline arts, and I'm working on doing my eBay business and, doing what we're doing now. So Keep that in mind. Post a comment. Do not post the name of your store if you don't want it broadcast yet. And I will have you email me before they pull off the email options. As I said, I do have an email coming up that I'll be posting on the About Me page on this channel too. But I guess I'm going to call it quits for today. I'm glad to have all you here. If I miss calling you out, I'm sorry. I'm not up on following through with that. I'd rather answer questions and move on from there. So I apologize if I missed you, but I'm always glad to have people watching. Glad to have you on the channel. And again, I'm going to be putting out better and better content. I hope that you'll enjoy better. I'll try and stray away from the things that you tell me you don't like the video from last night. And I'll just try and give you the content that you're looking for. So I try to add comments when I can. I might do something similar to yesterday with no music and actual comments as opposed to the texts, just because that seems to be a little easier to show you a crystal clear, good photo. Those photos I showed you in yesterday's video are the same ones I'll be using or used for my eBay listings. But thanks you all for tonight. Glad to have you, and I will see you next week, Wednesday at 7 o'clock as well too. Have a good one. Hope you're doing good sales on eBay.